What's going on, guys? I'm back with a new video. I haven't uploaded anything this year. This is my first upload of 2022. Sorry about that. Here's a little update about what I've been doing though. Back in January, I actually broke my ring finger on my right hand. I was sledding of all things. It was just so stupid. But I broke it right below my middle knuckle really badly. I needed 6 screws in the finger and it was just a hell of a recovery. I had a brace on for like 2 weeks after the surgery, and then the finger was like, I couldn't even bend it past like this point. I had to do a lot of physical therapy and it still doesn't even bend all the way. If you take a look at it, it doesn't bend the same as this hand. It doesn't clench fully and it bends like on top of my pinky, which is super annoying. The knuckle is really large. It was really hard working with it like this. I need to get another surgery in a couple months to fully straighten it out because it was just set crooked. It was a really bad break, so it was set the best it could. It's really hard to make a fist because it just doesn't clench completely. The first few months dealing with it was super awkward, using my tools and maneuvering my equipment around, my molds and stuff. So it set me back on some orders. So I've just been really trying to catch up on work stuff this year and haven't really had any time for personal projects or, posting content. But I have some time now where I can finally get back to doing stuff for me, and that's what this video is all about. So what I'm going to go over in this video is the first part of my new Red Hood cosplay. This is version 3 now, I think, and I'm going to be wearing it to New York Comic Con this year. It's been 3 years since I've been to a Comic Con. It blows my mind that I did Mysterio 3 years ago. Oh shit. Where'd all the time go? Anyway, I'm so excited to get back to a Comic Con. Hopefully I will be wearing 3 different costumes this year. Red Hood is a definite, but I also want to finish my battle damaged Spider-Man suit from Spider-Man 2002, and also I want to do my take on Scarecrow from Batman. I might have videos going over those as well, but right now I just want to focus on Red Hood. And another item that I recently made that I'm going to be using with my costume is my take on Red Hood's knife. I wanted to make my own version of Red Hood's dagger for a long time. I really like the look of it in Under the Red Hood. It has kind of that crazy angled blade. And when I mentioned to a friend of mine that I was going to make the knife, he recommended that I make the blade out of a batarang, which I think is a genius idea. If you remember in Under the Red Hood was able to cut Batman's cable with his knife. And I think it makes perfect sense for him to have done that with a batarang. So I basically designed it to where the blade is a knife and it's been like welded or soldered to the handle of just a tactical survival knife. I modeled this whole thing in Fusion 360 and I'm just really happy with how it came out. I really like all the dry brushing on it. I basically just use hot glue for this like welding soldering mark on both sides, and I think it really does the trick. I just painted it silver, and I just think the blade has a really cool look to it. It looks like a batarang from the side, but it's not too ridiculous looking or too fantastical where it couldn't just be, a funky looking scary knife. I'm going to be wearing, hopefully, my version 2 helmet design that I've come up with. I'm currently having that modeled for me, and then within the next month or so, hopefully I'll have a mold made and I can start selling versions of that. But here's a little sneak peek of the version 2 helmet. It's supposed to look like an evolution of the first helmet. It has a little more detail to it, different textures, hard angles, but I kept a lot of the aesthetics of the first helmet. And I also altered some things to make it easier for me on my end when I'm manufacturing them, because there are things that I learned with the first helmet that were a little bit annoying that hopefully with this helmet won't be as annoying. I'm going to be wearing that helmet with my custom chest armor that I've been selling, which I'm really happy with and I will make a video about soon, as well as what I'm about to show you, which are magnetic Red Hood pistols and holsters. I wanted to do this because I had these random dart guns laying around that I ordered like, geez, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago for my very first Red Hood cosplay.
Where'd all the time go?
And I ended up finding different pistols that I ended up using, but I had these laying around and I thought they looked really cool to convert into a Red Hood pistol for my new costume. And then I had the idea of, instead of putting them into holsters and like strapping them to your legs, I would magnetize them because they're so lightweight. If I got some really strong magnets and attached them to my pants and to the guns, that I could just magnetically stick them to my legs and pull them off instead of having to slide them into a holster. They work, and they work really well. So I'm gonna go through the process of how I made them, and I'll give you a quick look at them. So first of all, these are the holster pieces. So they just look like this. They have 2 neodymium magnets, and I just modeled these in Fusion. Just a simple design. They're slightly curved, you can see that. So they fit on the side of the leg, nice and flush. I'm probably gonna glue these to the pants that I end up using, but these same magnets are on the gun. And here's one of the guns. So this is it all painted up. Originally it was just black plastic with some red accents. So I redid most of the whole thing, and this is the other side with the magnets right here. And I think they fit in pretty well with the aesthetic of the gun. They're not too bulky and they kind of just blend in. They don't look like magnets because I also painted them the same color as the slide up here. I just really liked the look of these. I like that they have this curved bit down here on the handle. I like the little like attachment piece down here with the little like teeth on it. I like the vents on the end there. It just has more of a, it's sort of bulky, and I kind of like it. It's not too big and ridiculous like the Arkham Knight pistols, but it has just a little bit more oomph to it. You know, it looks a little more aggressive, and the subtle little red accents that I added just make it look more unique to Red Hood. Trigger has a spring in it. Also, the slide comes back. So the magnets on the holster and then the magnets on the gun just click together like that, and it's really flush and it's strong. They're not gonna fall off. I did tests walking around with them, and they hold up. They're really easy to remove and clip back on. But without further ado, let's get into the process of how I made these pistols and the magnetic holsters. So like I mentioned, these guns I just had laying around, bought them a few years back, and never got around to using them. They're just basic like dart guns, but they look really cool. They have a lot of great detail in them, and I think they're a good size for a Red Hood gun, but they're just really lightweight, simple like dart guns. You pull the hammer back and then the dart would fly out, and I think they're a really great base for this build. This is what they're going to be mounted on. This is just the raw 3D print of the magnetic holster. The magnets just fit in here, and then I added just a few little fake rivets to give it some sort of detail and extra texturing. So first what I'm going to do is just mount the magnets onto the guns and the little holsters I modeled up. It's just easier to get this stuff in position before painting. Otherwise I might, mess up the paint job if I'm trying to adhere the magnets to the gun after it's already painted. It might not adhere well. I might have to like chip some of the paint off. It's just kind of a hassle to do it that way. It's better to just glue it directly to the plastic of the gun as is, and then do all the painting after. So I'm going to mount the magnets into the holster first, because then it will make it a lot easier to line up the magnets on the side of the gun. First I'm going to take this 80 grit sandpaper and just get into the little indents where the magnets are going to go so they adhere to the plastic well. Then I'm just going to sand the backs of the magnets. Then I'm just going to use some Loctite to glue them in. And there you go. Now the magnets are in place. Now I'm going to put them on the gun. So for the gun, I want them to be mounted like right up to the edge of this little section here. They're going to cover these letters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this down with just a little bit of sandpaper, and I'm going to attach the magnets to the holster first and then take the gun and like use the holster to line them up on the gun, if that makes sense. So I'll just take some of this 80 grit again, nothing too crazy, just to give it a little bit of bite for the glue. So I'll do the same thing as before. I'm going to sand the back of the magnet. I'm actually going to get this one in place first where I want it. Line it up on here. Get it as straight as I can. Like that. Right. And then once I put the glue on this one and I just kind of clip it down on top, they will line up perfectly straight, because this one will fall into this. The magnet sits just below this edge, so there's a tiny little area. So I'm going to take this magnet, put a little bit of glue on this one, and we'll do this carefully. Alright, and now they click together. Perfect. There's just enough of a lip where these fit into here. So this doesn't like twist around, doesn't slide all over the place. Alright, so now that the magnets are all attached, we can start painting. So what I'm going to do first is just disassemble these guns. I'm going to remove all the screws, separate all the different pieces, and give everything a nice sanding. I'm probably going to go over these with like an 80 grit and then a like 120 grit, and then do some wet sanding just to get them smooth. The guns are already smooth, but I want the paint to adhere really well, so I'm probably just going to go over these with like a 200 grit. So before I start sanding and painting, what I'm going to do is just fill in the screw holes on the guns with some JB Weld steel stick. This stuff hardens really quickly and it's easy to sand. It's just going to look a lot better without all these holes all over the place on the finished product. I'm also going to fill in the wording on the gun with some Bondo glazing spot putty. Some of these words, like, it just makes it look more like a toy, so I just want to get those out of there. And those will be easy to just fill in and sand down. So I'm just using some like 200 grit just to get those smooth with the rest of the gun. So here are those all sanded down smooth, and I went over the rest of the gun as well with the 200 grit just to give the paint something to adhere to. And here are the holsters. I sanded those smooth as well. So now it's time to paint the guns. I'm just going to be starting with some Rust-Oleum gray primer. I'm going to lay that down over every piece. Then I'm also going to do the same thing for the remaining pieces, like the ends of the barrels, the triggers, the little greeblies, and the other slide pieces. Then I'm going to lay down a coat of matte black over the main gun pieces. Now I want this gun to be two-toned, so I'm going to paint the top of the slide gunmetal so it can match the rest of my costume, like my chest armor. And I'm also going to do the same for the extra slide pieces and the triggers. Then I'm going to be taking this metal cast base coat and I'm going to do a couple coats on the barrels and the little greeblies on the side because I want these guns to have touches of red. So I'm going to be using the same paint that I use on my helmets to give it that metallic red look. And I'll follow that up with the top coat, which is translucent red. I'll just lay that on and it's going to give them a nice pop of red and it really stands out. It's quite vibrant. Alright guys, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be reassembling the guns. Since I removed all of the screw holes, I'm going to be permanently gluing them back together, and I'm just going to be using some Loctite. I'm also going to be reusing the springs from the gun in the trigger and in the slide, just to give it a little bit more functionality and a little more realism. So that's what I'm going to do right now. There were these little sliding doors where you would load I think it was little water pellets that you could put in these too. They had these little doors that you could slide open on the top here. So I'm just gonna put those back in, just painted them black. They're not gonna have any functionality, but they'll break up the color a little bit more. So I'll take the nozzle and I'll put that in place. There. Now I'm just going to put a dab of glue on these pegs, and then I will take the top part of the gun and press it in place, as well as connecting the other part of the slide here. Then I'm just going to add some black paint to the sights on the top of the gun just to break up that gunmetal color. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start some weathering. I'm going to start by going into the little grooves on the gun and airbrushing in some black shadowing, some buildup in some of the recessed areas, and then I'm going to go over it with some light silver dry brushing. So we're going to get into that now. So as you can see, it's really subtle. Just picks up the crevices and the shadows. Put a little bit of residue near the vents in the front. So now I'm going to go in and just do some subtle dry brushing with some silver paint, just to catch the edges and make it look like a real metal gun that's been scuffed up. I'm going to be using one of these cheap brushes that have kind of thicker bristles to make the scratches look more intense. So when it's all done, it looks something like this. Nice and subtle. Just catches the subtle accents everywhere. Then I'm just going to do the same thing to the holsters, which I painted black, and then everything's done. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed that quick little video on how I made these Red Hood guns. I really like that I just had these laying around and I repurposed them into something I could really use. Otherwise they would have just been guns that I spent money on and did nothing with. They would have just been sitting around. They weren't expensive or anything, but it just shows that, sometimes you can repurpose anything and it can work out for you. I'm really excited to use these at Comic-Con. Again, I hope you liked the video. I'm going to try to put out more content because I really do like showing you guys the process on how I do this stuff. But anyway, until next time, this is Luke 101. Thank you for watching.